Today, we're going to explore two terrifying cave incidents that happened in the exact same location during the same year. Both accidents occurred for the same dangerous reason, but the second one was far more deadly than the first. What you're about to hear will shock you. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. In June 1988, a group of cave explorers made a discovery inside Hicks Cave in Kentucky. What they found should have been a clear warning to everyone who entered that cave. Hidden deep underground was something that looked innocent but was actually a deadly trap. And by October of that same year, this trap would reveal its true danger in the most horrifying way possible. Hicks Cave is located in Kentucky and is part of a massive underground system called the Hidden River Complex. This cave system stretches for 20 miles through limestone rock. Unlike some caves that require ropes and climbing equipment, Hicks Cave is mostly made of walking and crawling passages that wind deep underground. Far inside the cave system, there's an area known as the J Survey section. This remote area is located miles away from the cave entrances near the Green River. In this section, there's a small stream that flows through the passages and empties into a low spot at station J247. This low spot is called a slump pit, and it measures about 8 feet by 7 feet. Between 1976 and 1987, about 15 different survey teams passed by this slump pit while mapping the cave. Every single team saw the same thing: a pool of water sitting at the bottom of the pit, at least 2 feet deep. The water seemed to have no way out except slowly draining through tiny cracks in the rocks below. Nobody thought much about it. It was just a small pool of standing water in a muddy depression. There was no reason to climb down and investigate further. But something unusual happened in the spring of 1988. A severe drought hit Kentucky and continued throughout the summer. Water levels dropped dramatically in all the caves across the region. Streams that normally flowed all year became tiny trickles or dried up completely. Pools that had existed for decades suddenly disappeared, exposing rocks that hadn't been seen in years. On Memorial Day weekend in 1988, a survey team walked past station J247 and noticed something amazing. The slump pit that had always contained water was now completely dry. The drought had lowered the water table so much that the pit had drained entirely. The mud floor was now exposed, and so was whatever might be hidden beneath the old pool. This was exciting news for cave explorers. A feature that had been underwater for over 12 years was now accessible. Maybe there was a new passage hidden beneath where the water used to be. If they could find a continuation beyond the pit, it might lead to major new discoveries in the cave system. In early June, a cave explorer named Phil Odell put together a team to investigate the dried-up slump pit at J247. Their goal was simple: find out if there was any passage hidden beneath where the water had been for the past 12 years or more. Odell and his team made their way through Hicks Cave until they reached station J247. They were probably excited about the possibility of finding new cave passages. When they arrived at the slump pit, Odell looked at the climb down into the depression. It seemed fairly easy. The pit wasn't very deep or difficult to access. It was just a matter of carefully lowering yourself down into the muddy floor. At the bottom of the pit, beneath an overhanging rock formation, Odell could see what looked like a promising opening. It was a passage about 3 feet high and 1 to 2 feet wide. This definitely seemed worth checking out. Odell climbed down into the slump pit to take a closer look at the potential passage. He reached the bottom and began examining the low opening beneath the rock overhang. But within just a few seconds of reaching the bottom, something went terribly wrong. Odell was using a carbide lamp for light. Carbide lamps produce a steady white flame that works great for exploring caves. But suddenly, Odell's lamp flame changed in a dramatic and frightening way. The normal white flame turned bright yellow and stretched to an unusual length of 6 to 8 inches. Even stranger, the base of the flame was positioned about 2 inches away from the lamp opening instead of right at the gas outlet. This weird flame behavior was an immediate warning that something was wrong with the air in the pit. Before Odell could fully understand what he was seeing, he started feeling sick. In less than 1 minute, he became dizzy. His breathing felt difficult and shallow, like he couldn't get enough air into his lungs even though he was breathing normally. His coordination started failing rapidly, and he found himself bumping into the passage walls as he tried to move. Odell's experience and training kicked in despite his weakened state. He realized he was in bad air, an atmosphere with too little oxygen or too much carbon dioxide or other dangerous gases. He knew he had to get out of the pit immediately before he lost consciousness or worse. Odell quickly climbed back up out of the slump pit to the main passage level where the air quality was normal. His companions helped him as he came out of the pit, clearly concerned by his distress and confusion. Odell sat down in the better air and focused on breathing deeply, letting his body recover from the brief exposure to the dangerous atmosphere. After several minutes of breathing normal air, Odell's symptoms went away. His breathing returned to normal, the dizziness faded, and his coordination improved. He had been lucky to recognize the danger quickly and get himself out before suffering more serious effects from the bad air. To confirm and demonstrate what Odell had experienced, one of his companions did a simple test. He placed a candle on the floor of the slump pit and watched what happened. The flame went out in just 15 seconds. This was dramatic proof that the atmosphere at the bottom of the pit couldn't support fire and therefore couldn't support human life for very long. After this incident, Tom Allers put together a detailed accident report documenting what happened to Odell. The report led to research into what exactly was happening in the slump pit at J247. Odell and others did library research and talked with Kentucky mining experts and water specialists to understand the atmospheric conditions they had found. The conclusion was clear. The air in the slump pit was high in carbon dioxide and dangerously low in oxygen. The depression was working like a trap for heavy gases, especially carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is heavier than normal air and tends to collect in low areas with poor air circulation. The drought that had drained the water from the pit had also exposed this atmospheric danger that had been hidden by the standing water for over a decade. Throughout the summer of 1988, the slump pit at J247 became something of a tourist attraction for survey teams working in that part of Hicks Cave. Teams would stop at station J247 specifically to see the bad air phenomenon. It became an educational stop during survey trips, a way to teach people about the dangers that can exist in caves. But what was treated as an interesting lesson during the summer would soon become the location of a nightmare in October. The bad air that had been safely demonstrated from the edge of the pit would show its true deadly nature. Now let's move to our second story. On October 8th, 1988, 4 experienced cave explorers entered Hicks Cave. 4 months had passed since Phil Odell's discovery of the bad air at station J247. All summer long, that slump pit had been a curiosity, a teaching spot where survey teams would stop to show others the atmospheric hazards that can exist in cave systems. But summer had turned to fall, and the drought that had drained the pit and exposed the bad air was still ongoing. By October, the atmospheric conditions in that section of Hicks Cave had changed in ways that nobody understood or expected. What these 4 explorers were about to experience would be beyond anyone's worst nightmare. At around noon on Saturday, October 8th, 4 people gathered at the W entrance to Hicks Cave. The group included Tom Allers, who was 40 years old. He was the same person who had written the accident report about Phil Odell's incident. With him was Duke Hopper, age 41, Larry Peterson, age 40, and Barbara Graham, who at 22 was the youngest member of the group. The W entrance required going down an 85-foot vertical drop to reach the horizontal passages below. The 4 set up their ropes and descended one by one, leaving their climbing gear at the bottom. The group had a specific goal for this trip. They planned to collect samples of black material from 2 locations in the cave to help map the underground water system of the Hidden River complex. The 4 cave explorers made their way through the passages, collecting their first sample. They then moved approximately 2,000 feet deeper into the cave toward the J survey section, climbing down the 40-foot J280 dome and continuing toward Station J247. Station J247 was the location of the slump pit where Phil Odell had encountered bad air back in June. The pit was still dry because of the ongoing drought. The passage at the bottom remained unexplored and was reportedly one of the last potential connections to Hidden River Cave, a heavily polluted cave with a terrible reputation in the Kentucky caving community. As the 4 approached Station J247, they stopped about 5 to 10 feet before reaching the slump pit to prepare their sample collection equipment. This positioning was deliberate and careful, given the known bad air hazard. They began taking off their packs and organizing their gear. Peterson removed his helmet with its attached carbide lamp and put down his pack. Graham also removed her pack. Hopper set aside his camera case and took off his pack. Allers removed his right glove. As they were getting their equipment ready, someone noticed a smell in the passage. It was a subtle odor, described as somewhat like very strong mold, an unusual scent that none of them could quite identify. Hopper and Allers were positioned closest to the slump pit, with Peterson and Graham standing about 4 to 5 feet further back. Duke Hopper moved toward the slump pit carrying a sample bottle. His carbide lamp was burning normally. He approached cautiously, aware of the bad air hazard. When he was about 2 to 3 feet from the edge of the pit, something extraordinary and terrifying happened. A bright blue fireball suddenly appeared near the ceiling of the passage, directly in front of Hopper's carbide lamp. The fireball was about 2 feet across, hovering in the air like something supernatural. Hopper's immediate reaction was confusion. He thought his carbide lamp had somehow malfunctioned, but 2 seconds later, before anyone could react, the entire area over the slump pit exploded with a tremendous sound. The explosion was instant and overwhelming, filling the passage with flames that seemed to appear out of thin air. Tom Allers suddenly found himself surrounded by wisps of blue flame dancing in the air all around him. Both Allers and Hopper dove backward by instinct, hitting the cave floor hard as the explosion erupted around them. The blue light from the flames became the only source of light in the passage. All 4 carbide lamps had been blown out by the force of the explosion. Barbara Graham and Larry Peterson were outside the immediate blast zone, but were so terrified that their survival instincts took over immediately. Without thinking, both of them turned and began crawling frantically back up the passage. Hopper and Allers were engulfed in the flames. They had no idea which way to go. The fire kept burning, refusing to die down. It felt like standing in front of a dragon's mouth, a continuous flamethrower pouring heat at them. Both men realized they were now beneath the flames, pressed against the cave floor where they could still breathe relatively good air. The fire was above them, feeding on gases at ceiling height. But they couldn't stay where they were. The passage was filled with the roar of fire. They had to crawl for their lives. Hopper and Allers began crawling back up the passage, keeping their faces pressed to the cave floor where the air was still breathable. They crawled beneath a ceiling of flames and heat, moving as fast as they could while staying low. The first 40 feet of their escape was done in this terrifying position, crawling on their stomachs with blue flames dancing overhead. Imagine 40 feet, more than 12 meters of crawling through fire. Larry Peterson looked back and saw an image that would stay in his memory forever. Two silhouettes crawling through a wall of flame, their shapes barely visible through the fire and heat. He felt a blast of intense heat wash over him and kept moving away. After crawling 40 to 50 feet from the slump pit, Hopper and Allers paused and looked back. The flames weren't following them, but back at J247, the scene was like something from hell. The slump pit looked like a giant burning can with flames spreading wall to wall. A wall of solid blue flame started just above the pit and extended upward, filling the passage. The roar of the burning gases echoed through the cave. Hopper had burns, but was able to keep moving. He noticed that his right hand had taken the worst damage. Hopper and Allers shared Allers' flashlight, the only working light they had, and continued toward the cave entrance. When they caught up with Peterson and Graham, the group assessed their situation. Allers still had his pack with extra carbide fuel and spare flashlights. They managed to relight 2 carbide lamps, giving them enough light to continue. Much of their equipment had been left behind at the slump pit, but nobody wanted to go back. The slump pit was still burning. They made the decision to leave the gear behind and focus on getting out safely. The group began their exit, retracing their route. They climbed back up the 40-foot J280 dome, made their way through the passages, and eventually reached the bottom of the 85-foot entrance pit. They set up their rope and climbed up one by one, emerging at approximately 4:30 p.m., 4.5 hours after entering. Once on the surface, they examined their injuries. Duke Hopper had burns on his face. Tom Allers discovered that the hair on his right hand had been burned off, and the pain was intense. Both men had been wearing cotton coveralls that had become damp during their time in the cave. This dampness had actually protected them. Cotton, especially when damp, is less flammable than synthetic materials. This probably saved them from more serious burns. The question that haunted all of them was, what had exploded? Tom Allers began researching possible explanations. One theory was that flammable gases had been pushed into Hicks Cave from Hidden River Cave. The previous weekend, the area had received 3 to 4 inches of rain. If Hidden River Cave's contaminated water contained dissolved gases from pollution, those gases could have been forced through underground connections into Hicks Cave, accumulating in the slump pit. Another possibility was that a natural gas or oil well in the area was leaking. If one near the cave had developed a leak, methane or other gases could have traveled through the bedrock into the cave passages, accumulating in the slump pit where there was very little air movement. What made this incident particularly alarming was the complete lack of warning. In June, Phil Odell's carbide lamp had shown clear signs of bad air. But in October, Hopper's lamp looked normal right up until the fireball appeared. There had been only that subtle, unusual smell. The 4 were incredibly lucky that neither Allers nor Hopper had breathed any of the burning vapors during their escape. Staying low, keeping their faces near the floor where the air was cooler, had probably saved their lives. As Tom Allers noted in his accident report, good luck is sometimes the most helpful factor of all. These two incidents in Hicks Cave serve as a powerful reminder of the hidden dangers that exist in underground environments. What seemed like a simple curiosity in June became a life-threatening disaster in October. If this story captivated you, please subscribe to our channel and share this video with others who appreciate true survival stories. Your support helps us bring more incredible stories like this to you. Stay safe and remember, nature always demands respect.